mountain boy. You are more than a dirty child in patched overalls, you mountain boy. The hills are yours, the fragrant forest, the silver rivers are your heritage. Dreamers, thinkers, rise up, young hillmen, sing your ballads, dream your future, up and down your valleys, over the ridge roads, climb your jagged mountains, gaze into blue space. Turn your thoughts free, nourish your imagination. What will you do for your hills, you mountain boy?
This book, Clods of Southern Earth, which came out a long time ago, 1946. You young people were not born then. And I was pleased because the kind of people who bought my books were the people that I'm writing about and trying to write for. The people who are just the plain, ordinary, common, working people that I've been associated with so much.
Don West was one of the foremost Southern regional poets of the 20th century. In the 1940s, his collection of poetry, Clods of Southern Earth, became a literary phenomenon when it sold tens of thousands of copies. Don was also a labor organizer, an activist, and an educator who left a strong legacy for many who work for peace, freedom, and social justice. Don described his work in an interview with Ken Sullivan for Golden Seal magazine in 1979 by saying, "If my life can't speak for me, then my tongue is a pretty feeble instrument."
Great place to start. I met Don. Here he was buying this mountaintop and going to set up an education, a folk life, a folk school here.
The first year there was a camp here. It was in 1968, Ethical Cultural Society, something like that, from the New York area. They had a camp here the first year, and that group consisted of wealthy, to a large part Jewish teenagers or older teenagers from Scottsdale and Yonkers, etc. And the other half were African American kids from Bedford-Stuyvesant. They're from a very poor area, and so they wanted to mix, to expose these two groups to each other. And they came here, and the Ethical Cultural Society paid good money to come here. They paid for the kitchen equipment and the dining hall and a lot of stuff that was needed to start building it here.
So I came here and began working with Don. There was a pile of old boards up there along the road where the house is now. And the first job was to pull all the nails out of these old boards and then use this rough lumber to build the first stage, which is what we did. And then to bring people to the festival, to find local musicians who would participate in the first festival.
Well, the first few years when we had the big folk festival here, at that time we had maybe 1,000 people here, and he would complain about all those outsiders who would bring in the booze and the drugs, because we mountaineers don't do that. I was talking with Dave Morris about that. I remember at the time, he was just laughing his head off. He said, well, how about our moonshine? But Don only saw the pure Appalachian.
And it was a wonderful experience. I remember hearing Hedy West sing and all the other wonderful performers. And there was also workshops and people talked about social justice issues. And it was really a haven for the young people moving into the area. And it was a good, safe place through music for people, local people from the mountains and the youngsters coming from the urban areas who are moving to West Virginia or just passing through to share some creativity and thoughts. So,
can you push me? Hey, push me!
I kind of grew up around the Folklife Center, so it's kind of almost like a second home to me. I just think it's really neat now that I'm an adult that I get to come back and help out with stuff like Culture Fest and the 50th anniversary. I just think it's cool that I can stay involved the way that my family used to be involved 50 years ago.
John, the Folklife Center is our church. This is where we had a service when our son died. This is where we can come and have an opportunity to reinvent ourselves, I guess. It's been great out here. We've came here every year, all the years, 40 years. So we want to keep it going. We're glad to see all the young blood coming and keeping things moving,
It changed my life. When I first pulled up the driveway here in 1968, I was a freshman at Concord College, straight out of Washington, D.C., a very urban setting, and I had no idea what I was getting into. I grew up on R&B and soul, and I was wide-eyed and on an adventure, and I was going to learn something new, and I learned something that's been with me all my life, and that's the traditional Appalachian music, the soulfulness of that, and as my life progressed and I got involved in music and producing music shows, that's always been with me.
I was at the original Pipestem Festival back in 1968. Our family were real good friends with Don West, and I can remember my dad and Don sitting around the table talking philosophy. But some of the better memories I have of that festival was I was learning how to play banjo at that time, and a musician out of Ivydale called Janice Cottrell was teaching me how to play the two-finger clawhammer style banjo. And pretty much after things settled down and musicians would go their different ways, there would be circles of musicians playing, and I would be in this circle, and I was a 10-year-old kid, and along with that circle was a mason jar full of this white liquid called moonshine, and everybody that was picking in the circle would stop and take a swig and pass it along. Got to me, and I'm looking at it, and they're going, "You're in the circle. If you're going to stay, you got to take a sip." And I took a sip, and Appalachian music's been in my blood ever since then.
Mountain music, the spirit of the people, expressing the heart and soul of these hills. Mountain music drew people to the Folklife Center, where Don hosted music festivals starting in 1968. Don's daughter Hedy, at the center of the 60s folk revival, helped ensure their success. Young newcomers mingled with old-timers to experience Appalachian culture. People young and old streamed into Pipestem, West Virginia every August for the unique experience that became the Appalachian South Folklife Festival.
She's my curly-headed baby, used to sit on Daddy's knee. She's my curly-headed baby, she's from sunny Tennessee. I have loved her since I met her, more than anyone can tell. Now if she leaves me for another, I can never say farewell.
Rather be in some dark holler where the sun don't ever shine than to see you with another when you promised to be mine. She's my curly-headed baby, used to sit on Daddy's knee. She's my curly-headed baby, she's from sunny Tennessee. When I'm dead in my coffin, with my face turned to the sun, won't you come and sit around me and think of the harm that you've done?
I can hear the woodland ringing with those songs we used to sing. Laughter of our blue-eyed baby came from sunny Tennessee. She's my curly-headed baby, used to sit on Daddy's knee. She's my curly-headed baby, she's from sunny Tennessee.
I showed up here in October of 1968. 68 was a life-changing year. 2 assassinations. The Chicago Convention was like, all that stuff was unbelievable to me. I just felt like I needed to get out of where I was and do something different. So I signed up for Vista, and this is where they sent me. And the first place I came to was here, to the Folklife Center, with a group of about 12, 13 Vistas, and we were trained by some Appalachian volunteers who were doing training after they'd been Appalachian volunteers. That was the precursor of Vista. Don was here nightly. He would talk to us. He would do poetry. People like Mike Seeger dropped by when I was here just to see Don, and it was play for whoever was here. But some of Don's poetry, when he did it, he just had sort of a lilting way about it. There was a poem called Calling in the Hogs, where part of it is about the hog call, which he really did well, and about this old guy who had died and they could still hear him calling in the hogs. I realized later that the old man in the poem was his grandfather.
He says to her, "See them whickering shadders a wimpling by that tree, going toward the echo, wonder what they'd be. Pigo, pigo, pigo. Another again, Lurie. Across the marshy bog. Why, it's old Kim Mulkey calling home the hogs. Since last mass season, when chestnut burrs were spread, old Kim Mulkey's been lying with the dead. Nearly about a year now, old Kim's been away. Something calls the hogs home, eve of every day. Listen, Lurie girl, the hush of them frogs when old Kim Mulkey comes to call his hogs. Pigo, 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 pigo.
Listen, Lurie girl, to the hush of them frogs when old Kim Mulkey comes to call his hogs. Lurie, ain't it lonesome? Wuthering through the fogs, voice of old Kim Mulkey, tolling home his hogs. Pigo, 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 pigo. Why, it's old Kim Mulkey calling home the hogs.
Old Kim Mulkey leaned and stooped, heaves and sweats on a Georgia farm. Say, Kim, wipe your eyes, old man. Forget your skin is black or white. Pull back the scales that hide you from your future. You read your Bible, Kim, and you know a farmer lays axe to a fruitless tree. Unity is an axe, Kim, the axe of wisdom, sharpened in the university of toil and hunger.
During the Great Depression, Don West rode his Indian Scout motorcycle through the South, engaging in union organizing and often staying just one step ahead of the law and the company thugs. He was arrested. He was beaten. In Kentucky, Connie was also arrested, with young daughter Ann being taken in by neighbors. Hard times were something with which the West family had familiarity. As writer John Edgerton described it, the handsome and intense young radical gained near legendary status as a sort of phantom revolutionary who left a trail of radical poems and sermons in his wake.
Danville, Virginia. See now here again, that was an area where they had these mills. Danville, Virginia, July the 5th, 1934. Left New York City same day of leaving you. Was feeling very bum. Had a fever of 102. Feel good now. Throat not sores yesterday. Good journey thus far. Through Virginia highways lined and scented with sour wood and locust blooms. Met my man here, a good fellow, real old Southern stuff, not afraid of the devil and willing to sacrifice for the cause. Been meeting contacts with him today, preparing a meeting for tonight. Interesting the way these fellows know how to work. I'll walk along with them down the street. A worker passes by. One speaks to him in a low voice. Say, Sam, a meeting tonight. Down below Crotch's Ford on the river, the Dan River. Be there. Tell the others. Got a new organizer to help us. Not an outsider. He's one of us, a Southerner. Don't forget just after dark down by the river, and we pass on. These tanned workers inspire me. Their intense passion, their utter devotedness to our movement, and their quiet strength. They speak few words. I asked about the Negroes. Yes, there are Negro workers, thousands of them. They must be reached too. There's a Negro preacher or worker who's the friend of labor. He must be approached. We'll have Negroes down at the meeting tonight. Several thousand work in the tobacco factory. No union there. It's July the 24th, 1934. Spent last night on a cotton mill hill with the mill worker's family. Soon in the morning he was out to work. Big rain last night makes the grass and bushes seem to be smoking this morning. Many little twists of breakfast smoke make blue rings on the sky, and I know what the fires have cooked this morning. As every other morning, bread, fatback, and gravy. The kids where I stayed are all anemic. Too much feeding on starches and fat meat. The little baby, about a year and a half old, is pale like a dead child. She's been hanging onto my breeches leg ever since I came. Lively little runt, but not half a chance to grow. She got a hold of my paper this morning and gave it the devil. Have contacts about 7 different mills. There are over 25 cotton mills in this place. What squalor and poverty makes one wonder what the hell is wrong that we are not organized stronger. Sometimes I admit the situation is almost one to discourage a fella. These companies have such a stranglehold on the very life of their slaves. Must do a number of reports now. Don't have a decent fountain pen. Do you have one? I'd take care of it till I lost it or something. Try to write you tomorrow how things are further down. See, I have quite a territory, including Virginia. Listen for us. Yours, John Anderson. And I think he was one of the people maybe brought up in those hearings, you know.
He wasn't ashamed to be an agitator. And this poem is called Agitator. He stirreth up the people teaching. Listen, I'm still an agitator. They've called me red, the color of blood, and a bad man. But do you of the toiling South know me? Do you believe these things about me? You croppers, factory hands, black people, poor whites, and you young ones who look into a grim future. You who love the South as I do you understand? Do you see that I am you, that I, still the agitator, am you? I am Don West, too, the poet, a lover of peace and quiet places, a working man with rough hands that know how to toil when there is a job. But the poet is a cry for justice. The agitator is the restless soul of the toiling millions, stirring, stumbling, groping toward a new world, a world of plenty and peace. I'm the son of my grandfather, of old Kim Mulkey. His blood burns my veins and cries out for justice. I sing to her hurting land, and she responds with deep sobs of misery. She stirs and anger sets on her lips. I'm no foreigner. Nobody with calloused hands is foreign to us. I'm Jim West's boy, the one who saw his daddy died young, overworked, underfed with pellagra. It's not nice to say that we have pellagra, rickets, hookworm, black lung starvation in the hills. But I was born on a rocky hill, raised on a mountain farm, where my daddy's sweat salted down the red dirt. I'm the son of my mother, the woman who toiled along the cotton rows, and I'm an agitator.
Well, I've known a lot of Ku Klux Klan people. Warren mentioned that my library was burned in Georgia. Not only my library, but our home and our library and everything we had was burned one day in Georgia by the Ku Klux Klan after I had spoken out in a public meeting defending a woman and her 2 children, a black woman. Her 2 children, one was 13, one was 16 years old, and taken a Georgia jury about 30 minutes to decide that all 3 of them should be electrocuted. A white man had come to their home trying to rape this mother. The 2 children, defending their mother, got the white man's gun, and in the scuffle it went off and he was shot. So the mother and the 2 children, the electric chair. And the committee came out to my office at the university. I'd just been made a full professor, and they came out and said, we're having a meeting down in Macon, Georgia, to try to get sentiment to get this sentence commuted to life rather than death. You know, the governor had the power to change that sentence from death to life if he wanted to, if enough pressure was brought, you see. So then they said, we'd like to have one white man on the platform, and we found no white man in Atlanta that was willing to do it. I was not really a dumbbell. I knew what the situation was. I was a native Georgian. I knew how strong the Ku Klux Klan was. I'd known lots of Klansmen personally. I have, as I said, I have known them as members of the Klan in a personal way. And oftentimes they're just ordinary human beings that get their spirit and their hearts full of poison and they do ugly things when they get that poison in their system. So I didn't tell them I would speak at first, but then I thought, we have a kid 7 years old, we have a kid 11 years old, my wife has a job, I have a job, we were teachers, and I knew very well that our jobs would be threatened if I did speak. So I said, let me speak to my wife tonight about it, and I'll let you know. So Connie, she sort of made up her mind. She said, after we talked a while, she said, well, as I see it, there's just one thing to it. You've either got to speak or we'll quit pretending to believe what we believe. And that was, we believed in equal rights for all people. So I did speak. I worked on the follow-up committee. We did get it commuted to life rather than death. And about 6 years ago, I read where Jimmy Carter had set all three of them free. The children had grown to manhood, of course, in prison, but at least they were not executed.
Dear Daddy, well, I arrived in Jacksonville at 6 o'clock last night, which was 2 hours late. On the way, we had a blowout, and the driver had to buy a new tire and tube. Then we started out only to find a half-mile later that the driver had left his billfold. So we turned around and went back. Later on, the battery had to be charged. When I got on in Atlanta, there was only one seat left, and a Negro boy was sitting in one half of it. I sat down and naturally thought nothing about it. I spoke to the boy some on the way, and at Hawkinsville, halfway from Atlanta to Jacksonville, the driver came back and asked me if I was a Negro. I answered no. He then asked the Negro the same, and the answer was yes. The driver then seemed rather mad and said, well, what's going on back here? I answered that I had taken the last available seat. The driver left only to return several minutes later with the chief of police at Hawkinsville, who very boldly climbed into the bus and very slowly walked to the back of the bus to my seat. He, trying his best to show his feeble authority, said, what's going on back here? The driver then chimed in with his 2 bits. I could make it miserable for both of you. The Negro boy was told to go back on the long back seat, which he did, and some squirt of a white boy was told to sit in the seat. The police looked at me and said, don't let this happen again. By this time, I was pretty mad, so I said, if you weren't illiterate or so unobservant, you might have noticed the sign in the front of the bus which states, white passengers will seat to the front of the bus and colored to the back when possible. In this case, it wasn't possible, that is, unless you expect passengers to sit on the floor. The police looked rather dumbfounded and shaken that a squirt like I shouldn't have been scared out of my wits, so without another word he turned and left. I then looked to the front of the bus and noticed another sign which said, your operator, W.M. Calhoun, safe, dependable, and courteous. The squirt seated next to me was real crabby because of that incident, so when I got off the bus at Jacksonville, I said, so long, crab. I cannot really place the expression on his face, so I don't know his reaction. Well, I'll write again soon. Love, Hedy.
Spent the entire summer here, and one of my most profound memories is of both Hedy and Don singing this song, which is Pretty Sayro. But now I have to kind of tell you a little bit about how I heard Don singing it. Don was a very frugal man, and he would take us all on these wonderful trips up to, Beckley to listen to the play up there, or see the play up there, or all over the place. And he had an old VW bus. And he'd get at the top of the hill, he'd turn it off. And we'd just fly down to the bottom, and he'd jump start it, and there we go, So, but the whole time he'd be singing, just singing and singing. And so I never sing this song without thinking of the power that I felt at this place, the awakening I felt at this place, and the beautiful view here. So, down in some lone valley, in some lonesome place, where the wild birds do whistle, their notes do increase. It's there I met Sayro, her way so complete. And I want no better pastime than to be with my sweet. My love, she won't have me, and I understand. She wants a freeholder, and I have no land. I cannot maintain her on silver and gold or all.
Appalachian Folklife Center, I think in Don's mind, was modeled after the Danish folk school model. I know that Don West and Miles Horton, who founded Highlander Folk School, were both in Denmark studying the folk school movement there.
He began with Miles Horton going to study the Danish folk schools and coming back and being involved in starting the Highlander Center. And then, as what's happened to a lot of us, is you have close friends that you work with, and there's a falling out. What that falling out was about, who knows? But clearly there was a falling out of the guys that would work together. And
I was friends with Miles too, and Miles always spoke glowingly and warmly, and always asked after Don whenever I saw him. But I think that I never felt that Don had hard feelings towards Miles, but I think that he saw how well the Highlander Center was doing. They seemed to be able to get grants, and they seemed to be able to bring people in. It was flourishing. And the Folklife Center, I think it was a fight every step of the way to keep it going. And I think that worked on him some. Like, why is my path maybe so difficult?
Miles was very active in establishing Highlander in 1932, which stayed active all through the civil rights movement. It cultivated leadership with the concept of peer education, which was central to the Danish folk school model. And when Don bought this farm and opened this place in 1968, I think he was moved by a model he had studied 30 years earlier.
And here's Don, and I'll just read this. Pride is his product. Preacher, lecturer, and poet Don West teaches mountain children the values of their cultural heritage at the Appalachian South Folk Center in Pipestem. Here, he says, kids learn about the schools, often neglect to teach them. They learn pride in being a mountaineer instead of shame of being a hillbilly. And it's about that pride, and it's about people's innate sense of worth and believing in that so they can believe in other people's worth, and people coming together to do that.
Most of the people who came to us were from the United Church of Christ, UCC, Quakers, Unitarians, etc. So, but I remember we would take these groups when they come in on Sunday. We'd take them to church, to a local church, if they wanted to go, or they could go to our little Willard Up House chapel right there and have a little services there. I've sat in with them a few times. In terms of success of an organization like that, a charismatic leader is an absolute necessity, and he had it to the max. I remember talking years ago about the average organization, such as the Folklife Center, lasted about 12 years. That was just about averaged out. And even then, we had been there 25 or 30 years. And Don had a huge presence. When he was in the room, you knew it for sure. So he was a licensed minister himself, but he didn't have a formal church or anything that I'm ever aware of. But that was our source of income, and individual contributions and stuff like that. And going back to this charismatic leadership thing, to follow an act like that is really, really difficult. And the Folklife Center, when Don retired, they didn't have him, although he did have sort of omnipresence about it. He was always around somewhere. He's a bit of a micromanager. He wanted to know what was going on like every moment.
Well, Don West was connected to the United Church of Christ. I understand he was an ordained minister, although his church was this place. He never really actually was a pastor. And this was his ministry, and you can tell from his poems that he's very much motivated by what he calls the social gospel. Groups will come from all kinds of different faiths. There'll be Unitarians, Quakers, Episcopalians, Presbyterians, Catholic groups, and quite a few non-church related groups too. They'll come here and they'll work in our surrounding communities, and this was one of the original programs that Don had, to bring in young people to work and to learn skills and to make friends. The work we do is mainly on homes for people that actually own their homes. We don't work for landlords. People who need help or unemployed or disabled or elderly or whatever reason. And that's what we do all summer long. And it's a very special kind of work. It's people work. It really is what Don envisioned as a ministry.
Another program that Don and Connie started was a children's camp, and that has become Learning Day Camp. The kids come out and they do reading, writing, arithmetic, science, history. They have fun. They make it fun. They have a lot of fun projects. And it's educational to the point, and there's enough one-on-one attention because kids who've come out, who've grown up, come back and help. So they have a lot of help. The school system has worked with them where if there's someone just bordering on passing, not quite passing, and they come to Learning Day Camp and get that one-on-one attention and get caught up, they're allowed to move on, which is wonderful. When Don and Connie ran the camps, it was more about integration and getting to know each other. They would have children come from Princeton and surrounding areas, and they would be mixed race. And at the time, that was not overly acceptable, but they made a big difference in people's lives. There was a black woman I met, and she was talking about Connie and how Connie got her to come to these camps. This black girl came out with other children of various races, and she talked about how Connie made her feel valuable, because before that time she was made to feel as a lesser human being because of her color.
The place becomes special. There's a certain magic to the place. People come and people go, and there's always that connectedness that makes it a special place.
Oh, 25 years ago, we had 150,000 miners in West Virginia alone. Today, 35 or 40,000 would get the whole crop, and maybe as the more mines close down, less and less. So what happened was, after a long and bitter struggle to get collective bargaining in many places in Appalachia, after that, they brought in improved machinery. You know, you saw in Harlan County, USA, that tremendous thing that was boring, whittling the coal out of the seam under the ground there. Well, this kind of machinery did away with thousands and thousands of jobs that miners had been doing. I worked in the mines in the 30s. We had a pick and a shovel and a drill, and we had to use dynamite or powder, and we shoveled that coal into the cars with the physical main strength and awkwardness. So today that picks and shovels are antiques around coal mines anymore. They're not needed, and they don't need as many men either. So this is a poem about what happened. Now, many of our people have gone out to get jobs. My wife and I went out to get jobs and spent 10 years in Baltimore. We always wanted to come back. And I'd say most mountaineers who go out to get jobs, if they could make it back at home, I know a lot of them that have come back, and they'll work for half the wages down here in the mountains that they might get in Chicago or Detroit or Cincinnati or wherever they go to get jobs. And they would rather be here than to be, elsewhere if it was possible to make a living. Because this is our home, our roots are here, and so on. So I use one phrase here, molly grub and gravy. I was thinking about bulldog gravy, but you can't get all those words into every line of poem. So molly grub is a phrase that was used by the people who got surplus foods, handed out. The folks would say, well, I'm going to get my molly grub. That meant, the surplus foods he's going to get on welfare. And bulldog gravy, of course, is the kind of thing that's helped keep many a coal miner's body and soul together. So this is an automated miner. This old man had been out. He'd gone to Baltimore, he'd gone to other places looking for work, and he's come back to the mountains. He's still looking for work.
And I'll sing it. An automated miner from Cabin Creek said, automated miner from Cabin Creek. I ain't got no job. That's what I seek. Now I used to dig coal where the mine was damp. Said I used to dig coal where the mine was damp. Load 16 tons by carbide lamp. But since automation came, the times got tight. Said since automation came, the times got tight. They put me on a special diet. Oh, molly grub and gravy on the welfare roll. Said molly grub and gravy on the welfare roll. Can't get no job to save my soul. Walked the road to Charleston, my feet got sore. I walked the road to Charleston, my feet got sore. And then I went to Baltimore. But 20 years a miner, that's all I know. Said 20 years a miner, that's all I know. No job, no home, no place to go.
One of the memories that sticks with me about him was grace, that some people may not associate with Don. But when I was here, my first years here, there was a litany of disparagers, preachers, and there was a preacher in Hinton that almost every Sunday we used to tune in that would say that the most ugly things about the center and Don West, and that he was the epitome of all evil. And this went on for weeks, and at some point that preacher fell gravely ill, and Don West went to his bedside. And while that preacher and Don may not have agreed on everything after that, they were friends, and that was a display of grace that I hadn't seen before as an 18-year-old boy.
Particularly early on, I remember he talked about one of his neighbors that came and ripped down his sign and burned it, and he went and called on the guy and talked to him and was proud that the guy had become a friend and supporter of the center. So he knew how to talk to people, and he didn't. He was not fearful a lot of times it's a natural instinct if somebody attacks you just to stay away and write that person off. He took it as a challenge.
You know, he just had a presence about him, and he lived what he believed, which is, I think, really what impressed me about him.
He wanted to, Don, to his dying day, believed he was a worker. And of course he was a big union supporter, and he wanted to be down there, those are his words to me, he wanted to be down there with the miners, because that was big coal mining territory down through there. Of course Connie was getting increasingly frail and sick and so on. I don't know that, and Ann, his daughter Ann, lived in the area, and I'm sure they had a lot of interaction there, but I don't really know much about what he did, except he gardened like crazy. And I remember him saying, I went down there, and he's down on his hands and knees, and he's planting this fruit tree, an apple, whatever. And he looked up at me and said, "You know something?" He said, "I'll never get one apple off this tree, but by God, somebody will." You know, so that was the positive part of it. He could be extremely positive. He could be really negative too. But that was part of his allure, I think. Yeah.
It was purported that Martin Luther King read Don's poetry when he was a divinity student at Boston University. And I saw a new earth, alive with joy, and the vibrant voices of men, the laughter of children, and the daughters of men. Ashes of the desolations of many generations were scattered amidst the fields, where seeds sprouted and flowers deep-rooted, reflecting the everlasting hope in the eyes of the sons of women. There was a road winding up toward the high hills of consecration. It was no lonesome road, for it teemed with many feet. No person walked alone, but together they moved, and fear was nowhere about. People marveled at tales of former generations who moved with fear and violence at their side, and whose broken bodies, cemented into the roadbed, made a way toward the high hills, away from the darkness of bigotry. A great light was there, and it shone from the hearts of the people on the road, who were of all nations and races, walking toward the high hills in the new earth.
Stories, poems, songs help us find a way out of the illusion of whiteness, out of stereotypes, out of poverty, out of MTR, out of fracking, out of hopelessness. Jeff Biggers asked in this wonderful essay, and you should Google it, you should read it, on Don West. He closes with, "Does Don West still matter in Appalachia and the nation?" I say almost heaven and hell yes. Don West matters now, perhaps like never before. In Don West, I find a way to connect Appalachia to the world, and that is the song I am writing. So you see, I'm not worried about the legacy of Don West. I'm not worried. I'm excited that with technology and all the tools available today, that we can create a conversation around his teaching and ideas that will help others discover his ballads, his labor poems, his papers, his politics, to find a way in and out of Appalachia, to find a way in and out of America toward a greater song that supports our collective economy, environment, and spirit. Don West is that kindling, that kind, that kin, that Tesla current towards a change in thinking to find ways to connect and create energy. Because in America, our energy is wasted in our collective identity crisis. We are fractured. We are held hostage in a neurotic condition, a skin color paranoia that West, I believe, sought to expose and heal. Don West recognized the whole, the need for wholeness, and as a preacher, educator, poet, and organizer, nothing was separate from his whole. Not his love for Connie from his work. And the people of Appalachia are not separate from the whole of America, nor America separate from the whole of the world, of the universe.
Mountain boy, mountain woman, and mountain man, embrace who you are. Realize your power as a force for social change. What will you do, you mountain girl, to preserve your heritage, to continue the struggle for economic justice, for a sustainable future? What will you do for your hills, O mountaineers?
You were more than a dirty child in patched overalls, you mountain boy. These hills are yours, the fragrant forests, the silver rivers, your heritage. What will you do for your hills, mountain boy? Oh, farmer boy, rise up. Sing your songs, live your life, 'cause even you know how. Sing your songs, live your life, 'cause even you know how. Rise up, young hillmen, sing your ballads up and down ridge and valley. Dream your future, gaze into blue space, turn your thoughts free. What will you do for your hills, mountain boy? Oh, farmer boy, rise up. Sing your songs, live your life, 'cause even you know how. Sing your songs, live your life, 'cause even you know how. The soil, your father's blood has made it rich. His sweat is called